All right, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to You Don't Know Ball, episode 64. We're ecstatic to have y'all back here for another early morning run for y'all. Feels great to be here, and just another insane week, bro. Like the week, I would say, of narratives changing. And I'm holding myself accountable because I created a few narratives here over these past few weeks. Coming to realize I might have been duped a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big surprise was that the Dallas Buffalo game was like really not competitive. I mean, we saw it going into kind of like the first game of the week before we get into the actual show, like the Chargers and the Raiders. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have ever pictured that happening.
Watching that game, you cannot tell me, didn't feel like a fever dream.
No, and another game that felt like a fever dream, kinda. Atlanta, Carolina, just garbage. That one, and
no, that is one you truly can't make up.
No, I mean, also the Pittsburgh Indianapolis game was, bro, it was just, there was just a lot of games. Cincinnati, Minnesota, like there was really good games, and there was also games that was like, what was this?
Yeah, no, the Colts, the Colts Steelers was man, oh man.
All right, well, let's go into our first game, probably the most jarring game of the week. We have the Chargers at the Raiders. My question for you is, now that the Chargers have fired Brandon Staley, they have fired their GM, Tom Telesco, what is next for the Chargers? Because you have an OC in Kellen Moore, who's been vying for a head coaching job these last couple of years, but you haven't really seen all that talent or all that potential on offense really formulate, come true, come to what it was supposed to be. So I feel like the Chargers are actually in a very tough spot because if I remember right, they're $47 million over the cap next year.
Oh, they're in a very tough spot. I think I would start with this. Obviously, number one, you got to get the head coach right, like you're saying. And in my opinion, I personally don't believe it's Kellen Moore yet. Like, what I would say to Kellen is I'd say, look, man, I have no problem giving you another shot at this role because, remember last week I was critical on him, but reality is that their star three offensive talents have not even been on the field together for a total of like, what was it, like more than 8% of the snaps?
Yeah, I think it was 9%.
Yeah, it was 8 or 9%. So it's like, I'm going to give you another year to see if people, stay healthy. Let's see if we can get it going. But if not, and if they still can't get healthy and you still can't show me that you can create continuity outside of that, then your job's gone. So it's like, I'll give you another year in this role and at most. And if you can prove to me that, maybe we'll do something long term. But I'm definitely not going to give him head coaching duties yet. And I think that's the thing is, I'm not going to bank on a guy who already got fired from an offense where now they're performing much better without him, where, you know what I mean? I think the whole thing kind of leads up to that would just be like putting a guy in who's over his head.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly feel like this would be the perfect spot. I mean, I'm a Bears fan and I would love to see Jim Harbaugh come in and be the next head coach. But with what Jim Harbaugh wants in terms of roster control, I would feel like the Chargers are probably the most optimal place where the owner would be willing to give Jim Harbaugh roster control. And the nice thing is, and just kind of more thinking about it, this has to be the most attractive, like, opening for a coach. You have Justin Herbert, who just signed a massive deal. And you have guys like Joshua Palmer, who are showing promise. Keenan Allen had a good year. You have a first rounder in Quentin Johnson, who's still developing. Eckler, whatever you do with him, like, there's a lot. They have all pros on defense. Like, there's a lot to work with, but it's time to do something.
See, this brings me to my next point. You really just made me think of this. But let's do a little time travel here.
Okay.
Let's go back to last year. You remember when Sean Payton, who's gonna take Sean Payton off the Saints' hands? Right? And the Chargers decided, and this is where it goes back to Tom Telesco. This dude was sitting in his office and really decided, no, don't give me the Super Bowl winning coach. Give me Staley again. Well, I'm going to bank on this.
I get the thing of like not wanting to use draft picks, but I'm going to tell you right now, I would much rather have Sean Payton than Quentin Johnston.
If they had Sean Payton, and that's the thing, they didn't even have to give the first. They could have give they could give their second. I mean, you're telling me right now that you wouldn't want to have Sean Payton on their roster. That's all I'm saying. And I get it. Everything in hindsight
is 2020, yeah.
But I'm just saying.
But let's talk about their division rival. Because I feel like the Chargers are just like, At this point, they're to the wind.
Oh, this season and I don't want to say the foreseeable future when you got a guy like Justin Herbert on the roster, but like Super Bowl contention, I mean, probably for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's out the window in my opinion, unless you get. I mean, there's got to be some roster turnover too because they're over the cap. But anyway, the Raiders scoring 63 points with an interim head coach
after the shutout
and Aiden O'Connell, like a fourth round quarterback.
Yeah.
The defense played lights out. Like you got out schemed from a defensive standpoint, being a defensive mastermind head coach.
See, and that was by far the straw that broke the camel's back. But that's what I've been thinking with this whole thing, where it was like, and you saw his comments after the game. Like his comments after the game was really what did him in.
Yeah.
He said this happens across the landscape of sports. Yeah, and someone said there's the funniest thing. His top comment said, "Yeah, it happens. The bad coaches.
The bad coaches.
Yeah, we see it with the bad coaches, bro." And, hey, I get it. In his perspective, what are you gonna say in that situation?
I know Sean Payton was right there, like 70. Come on. Like,
for sure.
Yeah,
and they gave him mercy. They definitely had a few shots at it. Antonio Pierce decided to play it classy. You got to respect it.
I would have ran up the score.
He said, you know what? I think we've proved enough today. And you know from their sideline, like everyone knew what was coming after that game. It's like let's not embarrass Staley more than it's about to be after the night's over.
So before we go into the next game, if you had to put money on it, do you think Antonio Pierce is the Raiders head coach next year?
Can I answer it and tie it into another thing that I'm going to tie it to another note that I had to talk about before you skip over this?
Oh, Trey Tucker?
I'll say, if they can keep Trey Tucker involved, the way that he has been, you're getting Trey Tucker involved, I think we're seeing. And when I see him running his routes, you got like, hey, we knew coming out, but now we're seeing it translate to the NFL. You got a nimble, fast, speedy. Like, I know the hands we're looking at, we're still a little, okay, we want to see those hands get a little better. But get that man more involved. I do think he can be kind of like that secret X factor to that offense. So I'm going to say, keep Trey Tucker involved, keep this offense rolling. I do truly believe, the way that the Raiders have bought into him, but I also get it from the perspective of being the owner or the GM, and not the owner, the GM, banking on, okay, if I give him and I tell him he stays and then it doesn't work out, it's the same situation as the Telesco situation, where you're banking on a guy, or how much faith do you really have that it's going to work long term?
Right.
Like, but I would say, I would give him the job for at least a year.
Even another year on it. And the other thing too is you have talent on that team and he's utilizing it to the max, and you're beating division rivals who have arguably a top 5 quarterback, top 10 quarterback. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Raiders do with their future going into another game where kind of the quarterback situation is all up in the air. We have the Vikings at the Bengals. My question for you is, can Jake Browning be a starter in the NFL next year? Obviously not on the Bengals, but
I'll say again, it's always like, I don't ever want to like jump the gun and be like, yeah, he's for sure, because I've made the mistake too many times throughout the past few years. Like you jump too quickly and you're like certain of something, and then
it's a slow league.
It's exactly, it's slow, and people need time to get film on you, time to get your tendencies out. Say this, as of right now, somebody's going to pay him a solid bag this offseason. Not anything crazy, like a little Geno bag. Bring him over, see what he can do. Cuttable within the first couple years if things don't go well. Like a very team-friendly contract. But he's for sure earning himself that. And again, I don't know is it going to work long-term once his tendencies get out on tape. Once, again, you ask yourself, like, why hasn't he found a way in the league yet? I mean, There's obviously a few, there's a reasons. It's not like things just don't happen for a reason. But as of right now, he's performing really well. I cannot take that away from him. And it's like, as of right now, if he keeps playing like this, there's not a doubt. The question just comes into play of like, is this his run where people haven't had enough tape on him, people don't really know how to defend him yet, or is this him? So, and it's like, we will see that over the next few weeks, or if they can make a playoff run, we'll really see.
So I guess my thing is like, I think kind of like what we're seeing from him is sustainable. Like, I don't think it's like an unsustainable thing. Like, he's not making these wacky plays. Like, he's playing within the offense. And he's 27 and it's his rookie year. So my thing is, he is really like, he might just be a late bloomer. Like, he really might be. And like, he wasn't bad in college. He did a good job backing up. I mean, he obviously was good enough to back up Joe Burrow. So my thing is, I know this team is talked about a lot whenever there's a quarterback available, but like, You're telling me this doesn't make the Atlanta Falcons a better team if Jake Browning is playing quarterback for them?
Wouldn't even be close. And I think, though, and to your point about how it is sustainable. Like his streak, what was it? I remember I said last week he has a streak of going to more than, I think it was 9 different receivers. Well, I'll tell you what, he hit 11 different receivers in this game. So it's like he spreads the ball out crazy. And that is by far the most efficient way you can have an offense. It doesn't matter who you are. So it's like he is playing efficient football.
Very efficient.
There's no doubt about it.
Obviously, he has the weapons, Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, but to still be doing what he's doing is impressive. And honestly, we were out on the Bengals kind of once Joe Burrow got hurt. He has shown that he can stay in games and make the Bengals like a competitive team regardless.
This was one of those narratives I was talking about when we sure started the show, like how I'm kind of, I had to realize some of my narratives have been completely capped out. Yeah, this Bengals one was one of them. And it's like, yeah, like there are so many things about the Bengals right now that are interesting. I got another question for you though, because this game kind of highlighted it with that crazy T. Higgins catch. You think T. Higgins is still a Bengal next year?
No.
Is this the last year the Bengals fans are going to see him in that uniform?
I look at it like this. Whenever there is a high, like, priced free agent out there, like receivers, like teams that don't have a true number one are going to overspend. Like the Panthers will probably pay maybe like $5 million more than they should to have this type of guy on their team because it is so crucial to a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback's development. And honestly, like maybe T. Higgins is the type of guy to take a pay cut to stay around. But I don't understand if you've worked all your life for this second NFL contract, they haven't won a ring yet. They've been far, but like Joe Burrow, this is also now his second major injury. Like, I don't know how much you can trust that core of the team to stay together and be able to put together a Super Bowl run. I think they'll be competitive for a long time, but guys like T. Higgins just don't hit the market that often. And I feel like he's going to get locked up long-term by like a needy team.
No, I think that's exactly what I'm thinking too. So I guess if anything, I'll transition it to maybe Bengals fans. You might be seeing your last few. I don't want to. It's hard to put a number on it because you never know how far they're going to make it. But this last cycle of games with T. Higgins. So enjoy it because it's definitely been a great run with him over there. And if hopefully you guys can get him re-signed. But if not, and then also I just want to say Trey Hendrickson up to 15 sacks in the year, absolute tear. I mean, career high. He's going absolutely ballistic.
I mean, from one ridiculous receiving core to another, Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson are just, it's going to be frustrating as an NFC North rival having to go against these guys every time. And Jordan Addison was, in my opinion, has been the best receiver out of all the rookies. I mean, I think you can argue Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice have all been up there. Obviously talking about wide receivers, not talking about like Sam Laporta and all that, but like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson are scary. Nick Mullins is playing okay. Like enough.
I think I always knew it's like we knew Nick had this in him. He's always been that like he'll have a game where you're like, wait, that guy has some stuff in him, and then the next game it's kind of like that's. I feel like it's been like the Nick Mullins.
I think the thing too that's so crazy is like Kevin O'Connell is the king of one score games.
It's insane.
Like
he's the king of managing the clock very well and keeping it close for both teams. It's just
I think it's very impressive what the Vikings are doing. I don't know how far it goes in a playoff game, though. But they're also one of those teams that's not just going to lay down.
No, definitely not. I mean, like they'd be a prime example of what had happened to them last year. Have someone comes in, surprises you.
Yeah.
I mean, that they could be that team to someone else this year. But again, like I say, I don't lean that way. But the Vikings have plenty of redeeming things about them. Even mine is just the fact that they have one of the future best receiving duos for such a long time, like we're saying. I mean, Danielle Hunter is playing fantastic this season, up to 15.5 sacks also.
Their defense has been great. I mean, shout out to Brian Flores. Here's the thing. He should be getting head coaching hires or looks. He's not, I think, because of that lawsuit.
Yeah, I would say the politics around him now are going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is maybe not like in the future. Maybe like after things brush over for a few plus years here. It's just, but I do agree the politics around him are definitely a little interesting right now.
I think he's probably set to be the Vikings DC for probably the next 2-3 years. I think he's going to have to be a DC for quite a while.
How could he not? He has a 5'11" guy who was playing safety in college, playing every single position and playing really well. I mean, it's like that. It's just shouts to Metellus. So it's just, you can't explain some of the stuff he's doing. He's just making it happen.
Another game that I thought would be a little bit closer, but wasn't. We have Pittsburgh at Indianapolis. If Pittsburgh loses out, what are you doing as the Pittsburgh GM? Because the offense struggles. I don't know if you saw, but Trubisky is officially benched. They're doing Mason Rudolph, which I think is a mistake. But you obviously have very big issues on offense. The offensive coordinator's not it. You don't really have a quarterback because I don't believe they truly believe in Kenny Pickett. Like, what is your action this offseason?
I think like you can say about a few teams right now and this is what's so hard about where the Steelers are at, because you really can't even say it because the way the Steelers have been, the way the Steelers are built. But I think I'm starting to see that Steelers fans are kind of coming to my same consensus, my same point of view here. And I didn't really start thinking this till very recently. But to an extent, this is kind of one of those times you got to blow some stuff up to rebuild. I mean, you really do. Again, you got you have star defenders that are at peak value. And if you're a Steelers fan, you're going to tell me, fuck no, we can't trade them, because they've been your identity for so long.
Right.
But I'm just being honest with you. If the Steelers have any chance in the immediate future of going on a Super Bowl run, they are going to have to ship out some high-value guys to get high-value draft capital, because they have been consistently good enough to not get a high draft pick, but then consistently not good enough to win anything serious. They're right in that, like, that same territory that I feel like that the Hornets were for so long. The NBA would be a good example, like to compare them to even a whole other sport here. But you know what I'm saying? They're hanging around, barely making the playoffs, they're hanging in there. But then to transition over to, it's like some Steelers fans think fire Tomlin. I'm not at all on that side of things. I'm on the side of the Tomlin's been trying to hold together a falling together ship for way too long. Let's give Tomlin some new wood. Let's give him some new nails. Let's let him start building a new ship that actually has a chance to sail, instead of having him try to repair a ship that's literally sinking every single year further.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate. He's the one that kept Canada around for so long when it obviously wasn't working.
He defended him multiple times.
I don't think Mike Tomlin should be fired. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. But when you are a guy who is more willing to take on head cases, and those head cases continually flare out, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Like George Pickens.
This is the one thing of the game that needs to be talked about, because George Pickens is a very polarizing case. I'm going to say what it is that it sucks, because he's so talented, and I want to root for him. Like, you want to root for a guy like George Pickens. You're like, when you see the fun side of him, the talented side, you're like, I want to root for this guy.
Right.
But then he goes and pulls these stunts where it genuinely makes it hard to root for a guy like that. Because then again, I'm going to be clear, from his point of view, I totally understand. Yeah, George, you're frustrated. You're tired. You feel like you're putting out these reps for what? For what? The season's over. The QB situation sucks. But sometimes that's the thing, is in life, like, things don't go your way all the time. And it's like, also, if you don't show up with max effort when it's not going your way, it speaks volumes, because that says you only want to do well when it's convenient for you. You don't want to show up when it's not convenient for you. And in the NFL, that doesn't work. Like, you have to show up whether it's convenient for you or not. You got 52 other guys count on you. It's a terrible look for not only the Steelers regime to look at you, but everyone else looks at these reps too, and then you're losing value everywhere. It's just, you're hurting yourself and your team. It's just hard to see.
Third receiver. You have Claypool, Antonio Brown, George Pickens. Like, obviously, these guys are all not of the same caliber. But what also another thing you have to look at is, regardless of the offensive struggles, the Steelers have always been a good competitive team. So it's like, you may want out until you're on a team that's 3-14. And then you really don't know what you're missing. Then you really know what you're missing.
I was gonna say, that's part of the problem, is he's acting like they're not still right there in the thick of things, even though we know what they are. But when you're playing pro football, you shouldn't be thinking of the what ifs and what. You should just be out there playing and for your boys. I feel like there's too much going on in his head.
Yeah.
All
right. Trading TJ Watt right now. He's on pace for another sack title. Possibly he's got 16 on the year. If you traded TJ Watt in the offseason, what are you netting?
See, that's where it gets interesting, is because TJ is also getting old enough that I feel like that's where it sucks, is you wouldn't be garnering probably even where you feel like you're garnering enough. But then it's on the other hand, you hold on to him, and if you don't make a Super Bowl run, you just wasted the years. So it's not wasted, but
I know what you're saying.
It sounds bad, but you didn't maximize the years. And it's like,
he's also been someone that's injury prone. So I feel like if he has another major injury, it's kind of like that might put him away, kind of like JJ with the back and all that stuff,
like,
you know?
I think you might be able to garner a high second, late first, like maybe from a really contending team and then some later capital. And hey, my evaluation might be off because TJ Watt is like, let me be clear, I'm not a fucking fool. He is one of the greatest players in the entire NFL. There's not a debate about it. But like we're saying, age, injury concern, they go into these valuations, especially with first round picks, second round picks. Like, those are worth a lot to guys because they say to themselves, I could get me another guy like a TJ.
Yep.
So it's tough. I don't really know where the valuation would be. And from the Steelers' perspective at that point, that's where it's almost like the time would have been before, but the Steelers were still competitive enough before that you weren't ready to do anything like that yet. Like, this wasn't even in question until now.
Right.
That's why they're in a kind of a bleak, more of a bleak window now.
Well, the team they were playing, they are not in a bleak window. They're anything but. I mean, you might have the coach of the year in Shane Steichen and making the playoffs in a loaded AFC with a backup quarterback, which seems to be the situation for a lot of these AFC teams here. I mean, the Colts just continue to impress. I mean,
it's so impressive. And what I want to, my thing I really want to talk about with this game is, I want Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year, a Coach of the Year. Like, I would love to see that. Seeing Dan up there, after everything we know, we love that, right? But I think this year, I'm sorry, like, if I'm out there voting, I probably am giving my vote to Shane Steichen because what he's done this year this is unbelievable. Truly, this would have been like if Dan Campbell took the Lions to the playoffs last year. We were close. It's kind of like that's the thing. So it's like, what I'm saying is, it's like maybe not this year for Dan. I think this year Shane is doing what no one else has done in a long time. Like, he really took a team that we thought was going to have 3-4 wins, potentially to the playoffs. And I was looking at the Colts schedule. They really have a chance to finish with 11 wins this year. Like, truly, the Colts could be an 11-win team.
If I'm a Colts fan, I'm super excited for next year.
It's like, and that's the thing. Let me be clear, and I'm not saying that Minshew is at this point is turning into an above average quarterback. Like, he actually is playing good football.
Right.
But the point is that Minshew doesn't maximize the team. So it's like, when you're playing with like this with Minshew, I mean, you have got to be so ecstatic for everything that Shane and his offense is going to offer you.
You're playing without the number 4 pick in the draft that you had this year. Like, you're playing without your franchise guy that you just drafted, and you have a winning record possibly going into the playoffs.
I mean, no, it's absolutely insane. And another thing about this, I think what makes Shane Steichen so impressive, the whole run he's going on here, is that the running back situation all year has been so volatile. And you get a game where Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson come out of nowhere, explode for 157 combined rushing yards. Like, the team is the definition of continuity without continuity. Like, it doesn't matter who's out there. We are going to have the same result most of the time. And even if it's not the same, you're going to still see the same identity of this team. Even when they're playing teams that are better than them, the identity is the same. You see the vision of the future. You just got to love to see it for the Colts.
Samson Ebukam.
Samson Ebukam is one of the better. He's turning into one of the better edge rushers in the league right now. And it's funny because, coming from the Niners, he was productive over there, but now he's turning into a full-blown low. Like, no, you got to really pay attention to Samson off the edge. 9.5 sacks on the year. Huge part of that defense. Tons of pressures. Tons of hurries. Samson Ebukam's getting after it.
Colts are a huge surprise this year in the AFC. Are the Lions heating up at just the right time?
See, so this is one of those ones where it's like, I'm not ready to say yes yet because I still got to see the next week after this. But if they get, and then if this is another replication of what we saw this week, next week, I think I'm ready to say that, yeah, the Lions got hot at just the perfect time, which is what we were saying. I said last week, it was like, they're either cooling off at just the wrong time and you're going to start falling apart, and it's going to be the mess and the wheels are just going to fall off consistently, or they're going to bounce back at just the right time and the losing streak happened right when it had to happen and you had to go on a little, bump in the road right when it did. I think that we're leaning towards that was the case and that they're going to start getting hot right at the right time again, give themselves a shot on this playoff run.
5 touchdowns for Jared Goff. I think this was also a statement game for them. I think the Broncos have been one of those teams that have just been on a hot streak and with basically a team that you don't want to see. And the Lions didn't care. Like, they came in and put up 42 on the Broncos, and their run game Jahmyr Gibbs is averaging 9.1 yards per carry, 185 yards on the ground on 28 carries between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Amon-Ra had a day. Laporta had a day. Laporta had 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. I think we're approaching could Laporta possibly be rookie of the year?
No, I mean, we're getting to. I mean, Laporta is having genuinely a historic. We already knew having a historical rookie season. It is weird. Where it's probably never been a harder year to decide who's going to be the offensive rookie of the year. I mean, there's a lot of guys you could go with this year. This is definitely this is a tough one this year. But I think regardless of who that's going to. Side note, I mean that's just a side note. The Lions as a whole, again, if they keep playing like this, it's going to be. I know, the main note I had is Gibbs and Montgomery. I mean, and the O-line, when they combine like that, the Lions really can play with anybody.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of that line staying healthy, running back staying healthy, this team staying hot. I mean, the Lions, we knew, can compete with anybody. It's just a matter of keeping it hot. The hot Lions.
The hot Lions.
As was their OG label.
I think it's kind of fair to say that the roar has been restored.
I think it might be fair to say that roar has been restored.
I think it's been restored. I need to see them win a playoff game because my whole thing is I think the roar has been restored because they came from garbage. So to be 10-4 is impressive, and with a chance to be 13-4 if they win out the rest of these games. Even 12-5 is impressive. So the Lions came back. I think they showed us what we needed to see from this.
I think the Jeep ad is trying to show us.
Yeah, the Jeep ad is trying to show us something. But anyway, no, I think the Lions did what they did. They were on a little bit of a skid. They came back. They're fine. They put up 42. It's a statement game. Now, if you're a Broncos fan, are you any bit worried?
I think if I'm a Broncos fan, this was one of the ones where you start to say to yourself, obviously we're getting, things are starting to look, this one makes things a little bit more bleak. But then also, again, back to the classic schedule check. Look, you get the Patriots, Chargers, Raiders to close out. Hey, you definitely still got a fighting chance out there. Punch all 3 of them out, you got a real good chance. This one hindered it a little bit. Yeah, obviously hindered the Yoff's hopes a little here. And we're getting into really sketchy territory now where you kind of need the Texans and the Bills to lose a couple. You also would need, who else? You need the Colts to lose 1, 2. It's it's not even bleak's the right word. But now you're looking at a 50-50 shot. It's like a coin toss if you're the Broncos to make the playoffs. But I'd say regardless of whether you make the playoffs or not this year, I think there's a lot of things you can hang your hat on that are very positive going into next season.
They built the culture this year. That's the most important part. This is going to really be the first year under Sean Payton. I mean, they had the free agency, they had the draft, but they put the culture in. They have their players. They're going to be able to work on that in the offseason. I would love to see the Broncos in the playoffs because I think a Sean Payton coach team, anything really could happen. But overall, the Lions had a good game and the Broncos did not. Going into another game that was just disappointing for a team that had so much expectation going into this game. We have Chicago at Cleveland. And my question for you, Dobbs, is did this game seal Justin Fields' fate?
I do believe for a lot of Bears fans, yes. And I think, again, I think quietly almost, the regime has kind of had decided probably the very likely it was always going to be the Caleb route because of multiple factors around the risk of not using this number 1 pick. Not even just this pick, not using 2 number 1 picks in a row and then having Justin not be that guy is there's so much risk involved. And we've been saying too, fair and objectively, Justin was very much in the boat where he controlled his own destiny, right? If he could show that he can make everything work and be perfect for this team, he kind of was doing for a short time, and be that hero that the Bears need, and it's put and make it work, right? Could we give him another year and see if it works? For sure. But now, and it's not even just about Justin, I think, in my opinion, bro. That's where the big issue starts. And I think more Bears fans need to understand where I'll get in debates with Bears fans. And I'm like, hold on, you're not seeing from my point of view. This isn't that Justin can't be a guy in the future. This isn't about Justin. It's about the fact that if you don't pay Justin and you say we're starting fresh with the rookie guy, we have so much more area and so much more money we can put into other things that clearly are lacking heavily. And I know you guys already have a lot of money. So it's you pay Justin in the future, cap goes down a lot. But then you don't. You have all this room for more guys on the O-line, more guys on the D-line, more depth at the receiver position. I just feel personally, that's the route that it's just better to go not only for the QB thing, but it's just for the roster construction as a whole. I think it gives you much more shot to maximize the entire roster.
I think also if you do move on from Justin, it opens up a lot more on the coaching side. I think if you were to keep Justin, but then bring in a new offensive coordinator, that's his third offensive coordinator in 4 years. I think if you move on from Justin, it gives you a little bit more flexibility on if you want to move on from the head coach. I think also, if you trade Justin, you're actually probably going to get maybe a second round pick, possibly a third as well.
You know who I'd give a second round pick if I was their team?
The Falcons.
I would say if I'm the Falcons, I would shell that shit out the window immediately.
Even Pittsburgh, maybe.
Or what? In a second.
So I think my thing is like the Bears have a lot of options. And I think, honestly, I don't think there's ever been, I was very excited this offseason, but I don't think I was ever more like confused on what's going to happen. Like I truly have zero clue what the Bears are going to do. And at the end of the day, the logical move would be to trade Justin, get a new coach, get all new. And that's the thing is like at this point, like I'm so like on the fence about everything that it's like I'm okay with whatever we do. But it's just like I just want to know. I just really want to know. And I think that's how Bears fans are. I mean, you look at the defense, Montez Sweat, ever since the trade has been balling out. But, you know, enough about the Bears because they are truly a question mark. A lot of it is going to depend on if the Panthers lose out, which they should. They just got their second win of the year. But I guess this is my answer. When Joe Flacco comes up and almost throws for 400 yards on you and wins, like, look what Jake Browning's doing. Look what Tommy DeVito's doing. Like, you should, if you have to think about if Justin Fields is the guy, he's not the guy. There shouldn't be questions.
Yeah, well, I think that's very much the best way to put it. And yeah, and to transition over to the Browns, I mean, what an impressive win. What an impressive way to keep the playoff streak alive. I mean, there's many things about this game. Yeah, Joe Flacco, ugly game, but another game-winning drive to add to the resume. I don't remember the exact number. I know he's getting into the mid-20s now.
Yeah.
And then Amari Cooper's fourth 100-plus yard game this season. That's definitely a great number here if you're a Browns fan. Njoku x Flacco cooking together these past couple weeks.
What a duo.
Yeah, what a duo. They're kind of like McBride and Murray over here coming out of nowhere, this new tight end QB duo. 10 receptions, 100-plus yards on the day. I mean, that's just an absolutely amazing day. And then JOK, have a day. One pick, I wrote one pick, one interception. I meant to say one sack, one interception.
One sack, one interception.
Just having a day, JOK. And also, last note I really had on the Browns is very interesting. Myles Garrett still absolutely dominating, wrecking shit. However, 3 games in a row without a sack. If anything, it just speaks to how much that teams have to commit to Myles Garrett. But that's just unheard of when you say it out loud.
Yeah, no, it was crazy to see because if you watch the game, the Bears had all the momentum in the world until the 4th and 1 where Justin tripped. And
they started playing not to lose.
Not to lose. That's how they lost the game. The Bears play not to lose.
That's why I wanted to ask you. Last thing about the Bears, that is the MO of this staff, and that's why it has to be. That's why it has to go.
Which is
the
so
MO is that they get
confusing
so close so many times. The definition of close but no cigar. Like the cigars were getting fucking put into the humidor. They were bringing them down the fucking gates, and then they played not to win, and then the cigars cannot get lit.
This is the third double-digit lead that they've blown this year, and my final point, and then we'll go to the next game of our division rival, is I guess my thing is like there's just too many questions. Like there's nothing like for sure that I know about this team, and I just want answers. And my thing is like the best way to get answers is get new people in there, get the guy, and it's like I know that's a new thing, but like we've been riding with these guys for 2-3 years now, and we still don't know the answers. Like you should be able to know. Some team that maybe might have found their quarterback. We're gonna go to the Buccaneers at Green Bay.
Battle of the Bays.
Battle of the Bays. Is Tampa Bay a playoff threat?
You know what? I don't think necessarily, as an NFC South homer myself, I don't necessarily think anyone from the NFC South is a playoff threat.
Okay.
However, like of the teams in the NFC South right now to make the playoffs, I do feel like them and the Saints are pretty much like the same team. They really are. It's like they're very similar teams. But the Bucs already got that advantage. The Bucs are probably likely the guys that will make the playoffs, or they are the more likely ones. But I don't think that I view them as a threat. I do view them to go long term, but I do think that they're one of those teams like we're saying about the Vikings. Could they come in and upset like one person?
Yeah.
I do think that is possible.
They just strike me as like you saw what Baker did in Green Bay. And my thing is like, with how weak the NFC is, I can definitely go and see them doing something similar to a ranked opponent that has a similar team. And a lot of the times, if it's like a 6-17, 7-7 team, I'm going to take the Bucs over them because I know the Bucs can have these type of days because they have Mike Evans, they have Chris Godwin, they have Rachaad White, and Baker Mayfield is a gamer. So
Baker showed he can play in the cold too. Let's just leave it at what it is. Baker showed he said the cold weather. Y'all thought I was not ready. Let me show you. I said I still have that Cleveland in me.
Yeah, no, it's pretty upsetting. Obviously, talking about last game is to watch like your rivals lose, Packers and Vikings, and then the Bears just not be able to capitalize. But
I know that feeling all too well.
Rachaad White has been having really good couple of weeks here. I'm not gonna lie, I was very lukewarm on Rachaad White, but he has proved me wrong.
You know, I think he's finally started getting the consistent, like they're like it was like rigid. Like, you know what? We're giving Rachaad 20, 25 touches a game. He's going to do what he's going to do with them. He'll have some bad touches, but when he explodes and he has those explosive touches, he's going to go for the 20, 30. That's exactly what the Bucs are doing, and it's working very well. Like Rachaad White, get him the ball. He's a volume guy. Get Rachaad volume, he will make the other team bruised up.
Chris Godwin also had a good game. I think the Bucs might be finally clicking, and it might be at the right time.
Yeah, they were a team exactly where it's like maybe you finally got it at the perfect time.
Yeah, I think this offseason and the draft can really, if they make the right roster moves, I feel like this is a team that can turn it around pretty quick if they get a new head coach as well.
I was going to say that the biggest problem is, which is not a bad problem to have, is that you just got to find a new head coach. It's also the hardest problem to fix. So there's variables to it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like who the really like top coaching candidates and who is like really getting the interviews. But the Packers kind of disappointing.
Oh, this is definitely one of those games where I think again we learned what the Packers are, but we already knew. This was just reconfirmation. I think if you're a Packers fan and if you're somebody who's driving up the ratings for the networks, you were trying to really hammer home that like the Packers coming and Jordan Love is already this year they're a threat. We knew what the Packers were. The Packers are a team where Jordan Love is maximizing them, and they're a young, inexperienced offense with an incomplete but solid defense. Like that is the Packers. And that's what they're going to continue to be until the next offseason when they can make changes. And I think, again, like I said, I think the Packers have pretty much maximized what I at least expected from them this year. Like, I know Packers fans would agree with me on that, but I'm not a Packers fan and I'm realistic. With what they have on that roster, it's kind of like very maximizing what you have.
I think you're very impressed and like very happy with what you're seeing from progress from the receiving core. Dontavian Wicks, you put down that he had a breakout game, but like he's been someone that I've been seeing all year kind of make plays.
Exactly.
I mean, especially with Christian Watson out, allowing guys like Jaden Reed to really step up, and even their two tight ends when they're healthy. Not a team that I would want to face on offense. Lucas Van Ness is stepping up as well. That was their first round pick this year.
Yeah, the 2 sacks last 3 games where he had one early, but then it wasn't a lot, and now he's finally getting it going.
This is a team that is going to be really, really dependent on like how they transition into next year, because obviously this is not the year they're going to do anything. They have a lot of young pieces, a lot of promising pieces, but if they can't capitalize on their potential going into next year, I think that's when you'll start to see problems.
Oh, no, there's not a doubt about it. Next year's the year where it's like, if there isn't major progress, there will be major turnover.
Major turnover. One of the biggest stories of the year, we have Houston at Tennessee. My question for you is, can the Texans be Super Bowl contenders in 2024?
It's a very interesting question. I love this question. I think it's one of those things where it sounds weird, but like there's not a doubt about it that if CJ stays healthy and they kill this next draft class again, like, no, truly, tell me why they couldn't be. I mean, if Will Anderson makes another huge jump and you get, and that's the thing is, where the Texans have such a good problem where it's like, where do you even go next with what you want to add? I would probably go another interior O-lineman. Like, but either way, the Texans, like, they're in a great position. We were thinking they needed all these things. And we're looking now and we're like, wait a minute, D'Amico Ryans has ever been playing exactly how he's supposed to play. Blake Cashman's playing amazing football over there too. He never gets a shout out. I always make sure I give him a shout out over here. Like the Texans have a lot of guys that are really, really making a name for themselves that haven't been getting necessarily the credit. But I mean, that team, they're built, and one more year of an amazing draft class and CJ staying healthy, they could make a Bengals-esque run. That's exactly what I'd compare them to.
Well, also, like, you're going to have a second year of Tank Dell. Noah Brown is starting to show out. You have John Mechie, who really you haven't really seen much from this year. And, like, I was kind of chalking it up to, like, he went through a lot. He's getting back into it. Like, hopefully you can see that jump next year. But it's like they have a lot of promising pieces, like you said. And with a quarterback like Stroud, if he keeps taking the steps necessary, I don't see any reason why. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a Bengals ascent. Like,
that's what I'm saying. And it's because I almost forgot, bro. I have to include him too. Man needs his shout out because he's another guy where nobody's giving him the love he needs. Jonathan Greenard, also on the other edge of Willie A. I mean, Jonathan Greenard up to 12.5 sacks this season, quietly becoming a great edge rusher. And that's what I'm saying. This D line, it's not just one guy. You're getting a good trenches group, and then you can just put one or two more guys in the interior of that O line. You got really good trenches on both sides. Like, tell me why the Texans aren't a team that can make a run at any point.
I can truly see them trying to make a Super Bowl next year, which is probably one of the quickest rebuilds we have seen. Going over to Tennessee, is Will Levis okay? Like, I think Will Levis has been promising. Obviously, this year, I don't think he has much help, but did you see that injury?
Yeah, see, he's a prime example of like this was the primest example right now of where it's a tough position to be in as a coach, because the reality is, and the Titans fans are going to hate to hear this, but again, I'm realistic. I don't give a fuck about anyone's feelings. Reality is pulling him the rest of this season and waiting till next year when you actually have some continuity, anything about this roster that has any identity. Because right now you're just hurting him having him out there. Like we've seen what do we have from Will Levis? We got a guy with a great arm who actually stands really tall in that pocket. He can take hits, and he's a good leader.
He's
so
motivated,
it's like,
yeah.
Right, it's like, so we see he's got good traits. But it's like, if you throw him out there now, and we've already seen what he has, you're just letting him keep piling up potential injuries. And games like this that lowers confidence. What's the point? Like, I think if anything, you'd want to keep that confidence maxed out. Say, look, Will, we believe in you. You are the guy. That's exactly why we're pulling you the rest of the year, because there's nothing going for us this year. I'm going to see what I have in the backups. I'm going to see what I have in other guys, like the younger guys that they had taken. See if you see who is going to potentially still be on this roster next year in the QB room. Am I completely scrapping the QB room? Because I feel like at this point, all I'm really trying to get at is that playing Will Levis is genuinely pointless, because we already know what we have, in my opinion. You're just diminishing what could be the maximum by just keeping him out there in these meaningless games.
It's really frustrating because Derrick Henry only needs about 116 yards to get 1,000 yards, and it still feels like he's kind of just slowing down.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt. Like, and that's the thing is, you called it early. I mean, King has been slowing down, and then he'd have a couple of games where he fools us, and not even fools, because he still is King Henry. Like, he still has games where he's going to bang and bruise through dudes, and he's still King Henry. It's just not the same King Henry. No. And that's for sure is becoming more and more evident that there are days where he's just, those legs are not churning the way that they used to be churning.
Legs that are churning exactly how they're supposed to be churning is the whole Dolphins offense. So they put up 30 on the Jets. So my question to you is, because I believed, did they bench Zach Wilson for Trevor Siemian this game?
Concussion.
It's concussion. Okay, so if you are the Jets GM, similar to the Steelers question earlier, to prepare for an all-in 2024, what is the first decision you're making? Probably spend it all on O-line, right?
Well, yeah, and I think this is the thing. I don't know where Jets fans stand with me on this one, but I do personally believe that if you don't clean house for almost everybody besides Rodgers after this year, I think it sends the wrong message to everybody involved. Because I think, and again, like, oh, woe is them. They banked on Rodgers. But to your point and everyone else's point, it's making me realize more and more the more I think about it. But their job is to have plans. Their job is to have situational awareness. Their job is to have different outcomes for different results. And they banked on one guy who's basically 40 to carry the entire season. That is malpractice. There's nothing about the team, anything else besides the Aaron Rodgers thing that makes any sense at this point. Like just call it for what it is. Salah, realistically at this point, in my opinion, has been seeming like he is playing it over in his head position, because I never thought I'd be saying this, but the way that he's managed the QB situation, the way that, just the way that the whole thing with Zach Wilson, the fact that Nathaniel Hackett is still calling the plays. It's like, does part of you agree that the whole staff seems like they're in over their head at this point? Like, nobody is actually the guy to say, I'm going to make the fucking decision and start to fix this, because it's like they're all kind of just, it's like a point and finger show and everybody doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
I think the Jets is like, I think everyone understands that they're on a sinking ship. But the issue is like, no one is going to make it off the ship unless they band together. So regardless of how bad they do, they're forced to do everything together, because the minute you start pointing the fingers, you're already sinking. You're just going to sink faster. So everyone's just going to lose their job faster. So my thing is, I don't like what the Jets are doing, but like, I don't really think they have any other choice.
No, they don't. And that's like, it's part of the problem. I think where I would go is that, yeah, well, like, you had guys at the O-line that had so much potential and they just can't stay healthy. And then it's like, that's the problem, bro, is realistically, from where that I viewed the Jets, and you viewed the Jets the beginning of this year to what the reality is now, like, we're realizing there is so much that has to go into making this team a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
It really is. It's and Aaron Rodgers staying healthy for a whole season is on top of that, which is also at this point a numbers percentage with his age. I mean, it's just like the bleakness that I view them with after from compared to viewing them as my Super Bowl favorites going into the year. I've never had a more drastic overhaul of how I'm viewing a team.
I think a big thing too is like, you have like certified studs like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall just sick of it. Like, they don't even want to be on this team.
Did you
anymore.
see? I would say that I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to include that as a note on this somehow. You saw Garrett on the sideline, and Aaron looked like he was pissed at him. I mean, Aaron looks like he wanted to tell him, like, shut the fuck up. So it's like, that's a whole disconnect. Like, I'm sure Aaron wants to say this isn't about you, but then he's also like, that's my one, that's my guy. And that's another problem that the Jets have. Like, if Garrett's not out, like, they who is Aaron's guy if Garrett ever gets injured or something?
Cobb.
It's like, they have so many problems, bro. Back to Allen Lazard, number one. I mean, it's like that. It's like we're at a point with the Jets.
Horrible
like, let's be realistic. Like, they are in a terribly disorganized situation.
Okay, so with the Dolphins winning 30-0, I think it's impressive, but at the end of the day, like, I'm kind of like I know what the Dolphins are now. Like, their defense is ascending because of Vic Fangio. It took a long time to learn. Tyreek Hill was out. Maybe they would have put up more points. But like, my thing is like with the Dolphins, let me see it in the playoffs now.
No, they're just like, it's just like how we feel about almost like the Cowboys.
Like,
except the Cowboys just are coming off a shitter, but you get my point.
I actually feel more confident in the Cowboys.
So it's like, but yeah, they're still the same.
But
vibe.
It's a similar thing, like, where it's like they are the AFC Cowboys right now. Because it's like, until I see you actually like dominate a team in the playoffs, I don't know if you're any bit more than like the, like, not elite, but like really good teams. So it's like, Tyreek Hill, he'll come back, they'll be good. But it's like, I'm more actually confident in the Dolphins defense at this point. Because like, for some reason, the Dolphins offense has been streaky at times.
Oh, it definitely has been streaky at times. And it very much depends on, I think we've noticed, the teams that jam up Tyreek and can get Tyreek off timing, it's definitely the way to beat the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So that's why come playoff time, they are going to have this offense cannot be so Tyreek centric. And I think this was a good day to show you, though, where if Mike McDaniel, this has got to be his blueprint. Have a day, even more anything, where Jalen is the number one on days where you're going to be playing a press heavy team. Because it's been shown it's the recipe. Getting the Dolphins receivers off timing, it is basically game over for the offense if you can do it with the good pass rush. If you don't have a good pass rush, you're still fucked. But the good pass rush combined with press corners, it's over with for the Dolphins. So they got to be able to show us that they can do it in the playoffs against a team they're going to inevitably face. One of these AFC teams is going to press, playing heavy at the line against them. So they're going to have to show us that they can do it. What I want to say really mainly about the Dolphins, and this is not a bad thing because he still is the offensive player of the year and he's an absolute legend. It's not taking anything away from him. Let me be completely clear. But I think this was the game that kind of disproved the Tyreek MVP narrative per se.
Because Jalen Waddle.
Because it just shows you like, hey.
So the
if
MVP
we have
is
a full
whoever is
week to
wide receiver
prepare-
1 of the Dolphins.
Right, I say exactly. It's like if you have a full week to prepare, obviously Tyreek maximizes it, but they're going to get everyone else involved. It's still a great offense. I don't really think it would be rather unfair to give Tyreek the MVP, as talented and as amazing as he is. And then just a couple other short, quick notes here. Raheem Mostert taking that team single season rushing touchdown record, now 18.
Yeah.
And then
2020, he was at 18.
Oh, that's okay. That's what I don't even know. See, I'm like that bad research by me. I got gypped on something old. And I was reading something earlier day old or some shit. I'm over here capped out. I appreciate you fact checking me, bro. And then Brandon Jones, the 2 interception day. Just quick shout out. First 2 picks of the year, but shout outs to Brandon Jones, man. And then Bradley Chubb with the 3 sack day. Main note I had this for is because look, if the Dolphins are going to make that playoff run we're talking about, my thing all year, the biggest thing the Dolphins miss is an elite pass rusher.
I lied. It was 18.
Was it?
I saw 20 somewhere.
Hey, okay, okay. So, but he's gonna get to 20 sooner than later.
Yeah.
But 18 now. Okay, so we're chilling. And then that 3 sack day though, Bradley Chubb got to keep that going because if the Dolphins have any chance to lift Lombardi this year, it is going to ride on you getting at least a sack each game of the playoffs and multiple pressures. They need it from you.
Let's say the Patriots take Drake Maye, or if it happens to fall to them, Caleb Williams, or even a JJ McCarthy. With a lot of talk about Bill Belichick possibly not being the coach next year, let's say he is the coach. Do you trust him to develop any of those guys?
Absolutely. But again, I think this is what it comes down to. My big thing is I'm rigid on it. You know me. If you fire Belichick, that it would be the clownery of clownery. Here's my reason. I think yesterday would be a great example. We know what Belichick is and has been. Belichick is one of the greatest coaches ever. But on top of that, he's a defensive mastermind. That man, you cannot explain how good he is at defense because he's the best in the world. There's nobody who understands defense better than Bill Belichick, and there probably won't be for a long time. So the bottom line is, if you get rid of Belichick, you get rid of the defensive prowess that this roster has always had and will always have under him. Right? We know the offense sucks, which has been what we've known. They have to fix the offense.
Right.
Firing Belichick, to me, does nothing to do anything about fixing the offense. It just makes the situation worse because then you have now a poor defense and the offense still sucks. I think.
But do you trust Belichick to hire the right OC?
That's, again, like I said, I've been saying too, I'm telling Bill Belly, in my opinion, the GM stuff, that'd be part of my conditioning. Because I'm like, look, man, it's back to just the coaching. Like, just focus on coaching for me. We have too many eggs in too many different baskets right now. You coach and you go crazy on defense like we know you do. Let me get a squad around you where there is some direction. Because right now the direction is the
some
Bill direction.
Advisors, yeah.
But the Bill direction doesn't work when he's trying to dedicate time to 30 different things.
Right.
It worked when he wasn't. Now we're getting into a jumbled mess where there's too much going on in Belichick land. Take away the responsibility so he can maximize what he's good at.
Right.
But I think, again, to answer the question shortly, it's like they're not, I feel like, as far away from being back to being a better team as we think. It's just like that offense is so putrid that it starts with fixing that immediately.
I mean, yeah, I think we know what the Patriots are now at this point of the year. I think they can maybe win one more out of the remaining 3 games. The Chiefs got a win. Was it very pretty against a 3-win team? Not really.
Was it convincing?
No.
Fuck no.
Hopefully the Chiefs can improve, but I really think it's going to come down to Kadarius Toney probably blowing something in the playoffs, the way he just let that ball. Like, that may be one of the worst additions that they have ever made to the team.
I think about this a lot. It was meant to be that he was one of their Super Bowl heroes that day last year. Because it's not like, that's one of those things where it was like a moment where it's like, I'm going to let you have this one now because it's downhill from here. Like, he had the moment when he had it, he had that legendary day for them for the Super Bowl, and Chiefs fans always remember it. But now it's like, that's not who he is. Who he is inconsistent and a little bit maybe in his own head. Because again, is he very talented? I do believe he's very talented, but he's surely the most inconsistent player in the league. At this point, I'm actually almost willing to say that for certain. And inconsistency just doesn't work.
The nice thing is they do have Rashee Rice.
Exactly.
Who's been looking like a stud. He looks, Rashee Rice, I mean, he's definitely the wide receiver one over there. I think you're actually
maybe the only receiver that Mahomes trusts.
Yeah.
I think if we were to get him and ask him personally with no cameras, who do you really trust? Oh, it's going to be only Rashee Rice at this point.
And
then
CEH had a day.
Yeah, a rare CEH.
CEH sighting.
But as an LSU man, LSU boy myself, I gotta say I love it. Shout out to CEH, man. I love to see the vintage day. And then, but other than that, there's really not too much to say. Other than the Chiefs drop issues and all those things along the line just continue to be an issue. I mean, the Chiefs have issues. Their guys, they have discipline issues. They have drop issues. They have chemistry issues, I would say, even seemingly to an extent. But that's the thing about the Chiefs. It's so funny, and that's my last note about them is it just feels like they always do. They'll find a way.
But see,
to look like a completely different team in the playoffs. Am I saying to win everything? No, but I'm just saying to look like a completely different team. They'll find a way.
I just think my thing is I think they'll probably meet their match pretty early in the playoffs this year. I don't think they have the talent on offense to really compete with a top team like the Ravens. I think the Ravens shut them down.
It's going to be it'll be very interesting to see them in the playoffs. And as of right now, I would agree with that take. I never am going to count the Chiefs out, but is it ever felt more disfavorable to them? To me, no.
So with Patrick Mahomes struggling on offense, we have a guy in the NFC South who may have found his footing. We have the New York Giants at New Orleans. Has Derek Carr finally found his footing?
I think okay, because I as every fan of every team does, you go back and forth with how you feel about things a lot. I think it's I do know what Derek Carr is now, and I'm ready to say it. This was it's like my week of we know who he is. It's like the guys are finally know who it is.
This is the week.
What he is look, if you keep him healthier and you actually give him some time in the pocket, and the O-line actually has a good day, he'll have a pretty solid day. And I even say he actually had a really good day. I'm not even going to undersell it. Derek Carr had a really good day because the O-line had a really good day. The two things have got to be perfect together. That's what I've noticed, is if Derek Carr is not going to play well, for Derek Carr to play well, the O-line has to play well. And they can't, when the O-line plays bad, there's not a chance that Derek Carr is going to be the one to pick up the pieces. They have to be together. They have to be a unit. And almost maybe was Eric McCoy screaming in his face the perfect thing that this team needed, even though it seemed like it was the breaking point. Just maybe the communication for the O-line and the QB is finally on schedule now. Maybe it was one of those come to earth moments where everybody had to finally, I'm looking at it optimistically as a Saints fan, but no matter how you slice it, regardless, the Saints very legitimately have a playoff shot now for the next few weeks, even if not winning the division, the way the wild card standings are looking, the Saints are right there in the thick of things.
We got 4 more years of Carr. 3 more years of Carr.
So it's they better they better be able to make it work. You better be able to sustain it exactly, knowing how many more years we have of this. That was my question. It's just, can this be sustained? It's only a matter of time. Will we be able to find out? And then Kamara, I just want to give a quick shout out to. You gotta love it. Breaks our single season record for 1,000+ scrimmage yard seasons. Now it's 7 consecutive seasons. And then Tanoma Passanyaw, 3 sack day. Man, shouts to you. 7 total sacks against the Giants from the Saints. Just a dominant day from the Saints.
So with the Giants, I feel like we know what they are, but they're kind of feisty where they can win, a game here or there. The fact they have, what do they have, 5 wins right now? I would have thought they would have been one of the 3-win teams. This team has a lot of pieces to go, especially if Saquon walks. The defense is okay, but
Wink is maximizing them for sure, though.
Oh yeah, but what do you do with quarterback? What
do you do with a lot of things? But this is the thing. And actually, this was the main note I wanted to talk about. I think you'll agree very much. With the Giants, and don't get me wrong, do I believe that either Tommy or Daniel is the one long term? No, not necessarily at all. But here's the thing: is it's and definitely not Daniel. But follow me here for a sec. What I'm really trying to say is, it's the QB is not the biggest problem with this team. Back to the whole, you could throw Ronald McDonald back there, like we said with the Patriots 2 weeks ago. The reality is the O-line is so bad.
It's
that
bad.
It doesn't matter. You can I use my primetime Brady analogy. You throw prime Tommy back there right now, and he's still going to be struggling because of how bad and how little of any structure there is on the O-line and injury concerns. The whole O-line has to be rebuilt. So it's forget about fucking quarterback. You have to rebuild this whole line before you can throw anybody back there before they're going to have a chance. Because Tommy's my example. Tommy DeVito has looked good when the O-line is able to do anything. But they're not a good O-line. And when they play a good D-line like the Saints, they get obliterated. And that's when you're getting obliterated all game, you can't do anything as a quarterback. This was a game where it's like, I cannot blame Tommy DeVito at all. I will tell you genuinely, this is not a game that I'm sitting here saying Tommy should have done this better. Tommy could have done that better. No, the reality is Tommy did everything he could and actually made multiple elusive plays where this game should have been even worse. Like, honestly, realistically, the Giants probably should have been held scoreless. Like, there was multiple times the refs really kind of bailed them out.
Yeah.
Things like that. Or Tommy had a crazy breakaway to get them 20, 30 yards, and it was like put him in field goal range. Minus that, they have nothing because their O-line is so bad, you can't do anything on offense. You can't. When you play a good D-line, this offense is basically non-existent.
No, but this is what I'm talking about, too, is like last year, like we saw it with the Giants. Like, are the Giants really that different of a team this year compared to last year? It's like the same team.
And again, last year with the close wins and how close wins are so volatile, like when you win the 3.7 point wins, and then it's the same thing as Vikings, like it's volatile. Like you are who you are. And when you're the team that's losing the close ones, you're just the same as the one that was winning it, where you're not a serious team. You might be competitive, but you're not serious. And this year, the Giants aren't even competitive. They've lost that. They've lost that edge. It leaves so many questions. Questions around Dable, questions around if Wink will stay, questions around the QB situation. Questions around who's going to get paid. Like, there are so many questions around this team.
From one just garbage game to another, Atlanta at Carolina. Are the Falcons the most confusing team in the NFL?
You know, I think I have a perfect answer for this one, because I think that I would like to say that they're confusing, but the reality is I've cracked the fucking case.
You've
like
cracked the
Scooby-Doo.
code. Okay.
Because what it is that Art Smith is just way too convinced he's the smartest guy in the room, and it's killing this team.
He should be a GM.
At this seriously, at this point, what the reality is that the Falcons have everything that they need minus the QB. And I'm not going to sit here and act like Art Smith has not heavily hindered by his QB situation. No, he totally is. But games like this, you cannot sit here and use QB as an example. This is a prime example of when you're trying to do too much and try to get too creative and does not play to your strengths, and you're trying to always find new ways to win instead of just going with what works. Like, that's Art Smith to a T. And unfortunately, it's killing this team right now. He has got, for whatever reason, he has to feel like the smartest guy in the room, or I guess the smartest guy in the field. And it is, and I just can't emphasize it enough, it is the only thing holding this team back from having, not the only thing holding this team back, to be clear, but it's the only thing holding this team back from a playoff appearance this season. I mean,
Tyler Algier, 14 carries. Bijan Robinson, 7.
And none after he fumbled. And it's funny because it's like, I hear it, but it's like, did we really think Bijan was going to be perfect carrying the ball every single snap?
My thing is, you have Chuba Hubbard playing better than both your running backs. Both of them.
That was, the one note I had from this game, maybe the most exciting note from this game because of how shit it was. I think the biggest winner of the season for the Panthers is Chuba Hubbard. He's shown that he's legit RB1 in the league, and he still has not gotten paid, and he's going to say, you know what, soon enough, I'm going to be doing, somebody might want to toss me a little something.
Well, I think my thing with the biggest issue with the Falcons for me is, like, you have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Regardless of your quarterback, you should be scoring more than 7 points.
Oh, it's inexcusable. It's like the amount, and that's the thing is when you watch the play call selection too, there are so many head scratchers from Art every single week. And you remember, we were the biggest Art defenders a couple years ago, and it's slowly been trying to think of a good analogy here. He slowly showed us our true colors where we're kind of like, wait a minute, that's not the Art I know.
Yeah.
Hey, that motherfucker fooled me. Like, slowly but surely backing off. And it's like, he's very rigid in having to be the guy that was the genius, I guess, in his mind, and it just doesn't work.
I think the Falcons are probably the team that let me down the most this year. I think we were both pretty, I will say,
especially after week 2,
excited about their potential. And I just think they have shot themselves in the foot. They can't stop getting in front of each other, in front of themselves. So, they're very disappointing. Obviously, the Panthers are very disappointing. A 2-point win over a division rival who is 6-8.
I did want to give real quick though. I had to because I almost forgot.
Yeah,
the shouts to Bryce Young for this game, like the 6 for 6 on the game-winning drive, cool as a cucumber. That is the Bryce I know. Give the man an O-line, give him a receiving core. I'm telling you, don't count him out yet. He is going to be Tua 2.0 with the way he develops. Call me crazy now. I love having it out on record now.
Tua 2.0? I feel like that has to be a clip.
I'm telling you, everyone, because if you said it about Tua when he was struggling, I remember because Connor was getting that flack. You're insane. He sucks. You don't realize it. Hey, you know what? Connor's laughing now. I'm going to be laughing then.
Okay, so let me ask you this before we move on to the next game. This offseason, with all the changes that are going to come for the Panthers, offseason draft, free agency, are you banking on there being more boneheaded moves or more galaxy brain moves? Like where it's like,
you ready for
what are you doing? Or it's like, okay, you are ahead of the curve.
Oh, well, you should know my answer from how I feel about the man himself, Mr. David Tepper.
Okay, Tepper.
I think he has shown very clearly he might be the king of boneheaded decisions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I don't like to harp on a guy. I'm sorry, but Mr. Tepper, the decisions over the last 3 years, to say the least, have been an atrocity. We could start in tracing it back to trading CMC for virtually nothing, especially the way things have panned out. It's just there's so many questions around the decision making that the Panthers approach they approach the season with every season since he's come. And I just feel like this offseason is going to be another trying to rush immediate results, which is his MO. And with a guy like Bryce, that is going to come to a crashing avalanche. It's just like, so to answer the question, I have no faith in David Tepper, as do any Panthers fans. So it's like, I would lean towards the boneheaded decision consistently. I think every Panthers fan would agree.
A lot of down times for the Panthers this year. Not many bright spots. A team that is a little more up and down, though. Let's go to Washington at Rams. Besides the 49ers, is there a team in the NFC that the Rams cannot beat on a good day?
No, that's the thing. And that's why I think I'm saying that the Rams are in a very interesting position where just like we said about the Vikings and a few other teams, the Rams are definitely one of those teams where you don't want to see in the playoffs. Like, are you favored over them? 9 out of 10 situations? Yeah. But they're just that scrappy, experienced, veteran fucking fighting squad you don't want to see.
I mean, that's the thing is like, that's how like both of these teams are streaky, but like I have a lot more trust in the Rams to deliver. Where it's like, let's say the Commanders snuck in at the 7 seed. They're not winning. Like they're not winning versus the Eagles. Like they're not doing that. I know like it's a division rival and anything's possible, but like the Rams, I honestly feel could upset the Eagles. They could upset the Cowboys. They could upset anybody, I think, besides the 49ers in the NFC.
No, and like I say, the biggest thing with the Rams this year that hasn't been getting per se enough like spotlight is the way, yes, Aaron Donald's production has gone down, but the way that he's affecting those young guys in the line, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, like he's got them boys playing at a way higher level than I think anyone expected on their rookie year. So it's like that Rams D-line, it's like Aaron Donald and his young Bucs, and man, they're coming. Like that still's a ferocious unit up front. And when Staff is hot like he's been right now,
Stafford has been very hot.
12 touchdowns, 1 interception over the last 4 weeks. I mean, the Rams can play with anybody. There's never a doubt about it. And when Sean McVay's the one dialing up the plays, you know, Rams are right there with anybody.
Cooper Kupp is back. Kyron Williams is unbelievable.
Is he officially one of the elite running backs in the NFL?
I would have to say at this point he is, because if you look at his like measurables, like there's nothing that is elite. So he's doing this off just like pure football. Pure
vision. He actually is a vision runner. 5.1 yards per carry, 186 total carries. That's very much Madden numbers. Let me tell you straight up.
Madden numbers. Other side, Sam Howell's job, not so secure.
Isn't it weird? Because, and I don't know, again, I'm very indifferent on how to feel about it because I don't have emotion invested in the situation. But from my perspective, as I had said, I've said all season and will keep saying, I think when a guy shows you the type of flash Sam shows, and you know that you have deficiencies in so many other areas, I think it's so lazy to be like, yep, we're going to get rid of Sam. And then when we bring in the new guy, they're going to fix all the other problems. And then I always go back to the whole other hand. On the other hand, the new regime, if they're going to bank their new guys on a 5th round guy, like I get both sides of how you want to look at it when you're going to have potentially a top 5-7 pick.
I mean, they'd have to get like Jaden Daniels unless they traded up to go get Caleb and Drake.
And I think the one thing that I'm seeing a lot of Commanders fans say, though, to your point, is like even if they do go the route of drafting another QB and it doesn't work out the way they wanted, if you still have Sam on the roster as the backup, then you can go back to Sam. But I think that's a terrible way to look at things.
Horrible way to look at it.
Why would you want to look at wasting the biggest capital your team is going to have since Chase Young? That's where Commanders got to start looking at this. You basically already completely, I'm sorry, wasted the Chase Young pick. I mean, it's not your fault really or Chase's, but it just didn't work. The injuries just didn't work. But so it's like when you wasted your last generational first round pick, yeah, I guess from the perspective of the front office, like you really got to hit on this one, or the trade you get for it, you really have got to hit on. So it's like, it's definitely one of those I understand both sides situations.
When talking about value, I think this quarterback comes up the most. San Francisco at Arizona. Is Brock Purdy the MVP?
I think with the way that the league politics have changed everything, I think as of right now, like there's probably no doubt, especially the season ended today. That's why I even said, like, barring something astounding, he probably finishes the year as MVP. And something astounding, I won't even say it. He has to, as long as he stays out there and he's playing, I do think he locks the MVP, because the numbers this year are, I mean, they are very eye-popping. He's putting up fantastic numbers. He's playing incredible in the pocket. The way he's extending plays is just amazing. And yes, we go back to this thing. I hear all these guys, and you know, even I know Cam was the most recent one where the game manager thing. I get it. Okay. Yeah. And I see, like, it's like back to the I see both sides thing. Like, do I see what Cam is saying? Also, yes. But then also from my point of view, it's like, but not everybody needs to be an absolute game-changing QB. Sometimes the best way you can be a game changer is just be the guy who's willing to do everything you need to do just for the team.
So it's
that's
funny
what
you
Brock
say that.
is. That's the way he changes the game.
Because Kurt Warner was saying that exact thing. He's like, but at what point do you become such a good game manager that you are changing the game? And I think that is what Brock Purdy is doing. And I was very reluctant to accept it. But regardless of the weapons, coaching line, everything like that, he is doing the best that we've seen anybody run this offense.
It's not, and I would say it's not even close. Like with Jimmy and everyone else, it was like we'd have a couple of these weeks, and then it'd be one or two every other week where you're like, what the fuck? And you'd see Shanahan on the sideline, like
losing his mind.
Losing his fucking mind. Yeah, and it's like we just don't have that with Purdy. And it's a completely different feeling.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Do you think, because Debo's been playing well, CMC's been playing well, their defense has been playing well, before we go over to the Cardinals, because we know basically what the 49ers are. They are the best team in the NFL. I don't think it's arguable. You can maybe say the Ravens, but I don't think they've been as dominant. Do you think that the 49ers are too hot right now?
See, you basically read my mind, because like we always say, it's about getting hot at the right time. It's exactly like where the Lions feel like if they can get it going now again, where they cooled off at just that right time. Where it's like if the Niners can keep this going so hot. But again, hey, last year they basically almost did the exact same thing before Purdy got injured. I mean, they could have rolled all the way from like week 13 to like all the way to the end. I mean, there was like 10 or something, just rolling wins. So we do know the Niners are built for it, I guess. It's just, for me, it just comes down to, and it always has been for the Niners, just stay healthy. That is the Niners.
So with the Cardinals, it's just tough, because it's like, I feel like whenever we talk about them, it's always the same thing every week. We know what they are. It's a teardown year. Kyler Murray's doing his best, but in a talent-barren team. So it's just kind of like, we expected the 49ers to win. The Cardinals at least competed. McBride and Murray are fire. But it's just like, what is there really to say about this team?
Yeah, it's just like the only thing to say is we literally cannot properly evaluate Kyler's situation until a whole offseason of being healthy and next year, where we get some roster development. But even then, that's what makes the situation rather unfair, in my opinion, for Kyler, is that we're going to be judging this. It's kind of like it just all falls on Kyler's shoulders. But to your point, like he's on a big contract with a team that is so barren in talent. Like you really, and they had a great draft this year. You got to have another great one next year if this team has any chance they start competing again immediately, because they are still in that very barren range. And that's the thing, you just really can't say that much about them. Another zero sack day for the Cardinals. They desperately need D-line help. Yeah. I think that's the main thing I want to say. And then really just the last thing is that I do think Trey McBride could have an all-pro season next year, though. Like Trey McBride.
He definitely is one of those guys where it's like kind of a gem left from the previous regime.
And then one more thing, too, because Amari DiMercato, get him more touches. 4.9 yards per carry on 56 touches.
Their running back room is really, really weird.
They are.
I mean, they got Michael Carter in there. I mean, I like that he only got one carry, but Greg Dortch, like, I think he's like kind of like a spark. Like, you can just throw him back there. Like, they have a lot of like interesting pieces on offense. It's just utilizing them the best way possible.
No, they definitely do.
So going into a game that I think upset maybe all of Texas. Well, probably not all of Texas. I would imagine that Houston was
half.
Yeah, pretty happy about this. Going to Dallas at Buffalo. Now, we were talking kind of big about the Cowboys, but after this game, are the Cowboys frauds?
See, I think I still feel comfortable about how I was sitting because you know me, and it will go. My question always was, that's why I wasn't ready to gas them.
Okay.
Because the question always was, how long will it last? As always is with the Cowboys. And you know they say the more things, the more. What do they say? The more things get different, the more they say the same.
Yep.
And I think with the Cowboys right now, it's how it feels. But again, much like the Lions, could this just maybe be where they cool off this game? Maybe they lose another one in a row. And then you get hot again just at the perfect time. If you're a Cowboys fan, that's definitely the most optimistic way to look at this because maybe you did just have to cool off at the perfect time just to get hot again at the perfect time. But this is definitely one of those ones where you go in and you're like, at least we wanted to see a competitive game if we're going to lose. I mean, you got the shit kicked out of you. And the weirdest thing about it is that they got the shit kicked out of them in an area that I did not think that they were vulnerable to as much, where they got ran all over.
By the Bills.
By 221 total yards, 2 touchdowns. No, I'm sorry, that was just from James Cook. 266 total rushing yards, which is the most in the Sean McDermott era. I mean, again, it's just why can't the Cowboys just be consistent? That is the question. There's, in my opinion, and again, back to every Cowboys fan would agree, there's just too much talent on the roster for these debacles to happen.
Especially when you have a team like the Bills who have been so up and down all year. So, I don't know. I like the Cowboys. I think they can bounce back. I think their next 2 games are really going to be telling. I mean, they play the Dolphins on Christmas Eve, and then they play the Lions on December 30th. They played the Commanders last week, obviously division rival, anything can happen, but I think if they are able to confidently beat the Dolphins and Lions, I feel like I'll have a little bit more confidence going into the playoffs, but until they beat those teams, I don't know how much you can say for sure. I think this game actually spoke more about the Bills.
Oh, it did. And that's why I say, like, really what I want to transition to for me more than anything is that, look, and again, back about getting hot at the right time. The Bills were so cool for so long. Just maybe are the Bills, like, because I was thinking about this, like, it's weird. You think about the AFC right now. I mean, you tell me a team you wouldn't want to play less than the Bills. I mean, I think that the way that things have changed, the way injuries have happened, the way the Chiefs are looking, I mean,
I wouldn't want to play the Bills.
Out of nowhere, are the Bills looking like they just could maybe come and steal a spot in the bowl?
They won by 3 touchdowns with Josh Allen throwing for 94 yards. If that doesn't scare you as an AFC team, I don't know what does.
And that's the thing is, like, a lot of the Bills' losses were very close. It's not like this is. It feels like one of those years where, like, just maybe, like, are the Bills turning into the AFC favorites?
Okay, but let's say they lose in the first round. Does Sean McDermott walk back into that stadium next year? Is he back at the team facility?
So I've been hearing. It went back and forth. We heard at first that his job was in danger. I'm hearing from Buffalo beat sources that he's for sure in. We're all good. But like I always say, we don't know what anyone's thinking except for who's calling the shots at that owner table, GM table. So, I mean, I would say I would lean yes. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Bills, especially because you're looking at the landscape of the AFC now and you're like, wait, we are the underdog, we're the dark horse, and we really might have the most talent with the way that these teams' quarterback situations and the way the teams are playing around us. This year for the Bills feels like this, like out of nowhere, because narrative's changing. Out of nowhere, could they just come take a shot at the AFC chip this year?
It's possible.
It's very possible.
So, same question for you as we go into the Sunday night game. We have Baltimore at Jacksonville. Are the Jaguars frauds? And
they shat all over our narrative. Let's address it right off the bat. They What is going on,
Jaguars
Duval?
1 seed fucked us.
Duval, you fucking let us down. We were gassing heavy, making us look like some jackasses. All right, jokes aside. I don't want to say that they are frauds yet. I think what I'm really ready to say, though, is like, they're definitely just not consistent enough to go make a Lombardi trip.
No.
Because again, when they're consistent, I'll keep saying it, the 250 pass yards, 100 rush yards, no turnovers, that's the day for the Jaguars. They don't seem to be able to replicate those days very often. That is this team's recipe. Because you have the running back core, you have pounders, you have guys that wear down the defense. But if you don't get them going and you can't get that play action going that this team relies on, it's over with. And that is the Jaguars. And so in these type of games where nothing's going and the run game is non-existent, you are going to have problems. And that's exactly what happened.
I just want to know why they can't put it together. Like, I want to know why they feel like so close, but also so far.
But this was also a game where I think you'd agree, like, it's also just they are the kings of pulling out the Glock and shooting themselves in the foot. They're the kings of the Glock slipping.
That is what Doug Peterson said. He said we just can't stop hurting ourselves.
I mean, that's so true. That T-Law turnover was one where you're like
fumbling in the red zone.
Watching that one, it's like, and I'm saying this facetiously. I know he's not being serious. I know he would never. But that's like one where you're watching and you're like, is T-Law fucking betting against his own? I mean, that's a mistake so bad where it's like, how? I mean, that's one where it's like, genuinely, how does that happen? I'll tell you, back to what you were saying that I was saying the other day. I don't remember exactly what game it was. Thinking too much. When you think more instead of raw action, shit like that happens. T-Law seems like, in my opinion, he's out there thinking too much. Not enough thinking, or too much thinking, not enough action. T-Law, get out there, think less, act more. You're thinking too much back there. Just go do you.
I mean, even holding a team like the Ravens to 23 points is impressive. I mean, you gave up 2 fumbles to them. Like, if you don't give that up, the Ravens aren't, I don't know if the Ravens are scoring that much. Like, the Jaguars defense did not have a bad day. I mean, they got ran all over, 251 yards on the ground, but 171 yards in the air is nothing. And they forced a turnover with an interception. So this scares me because it's like, I thought the Jags could compete with like anybody in the AFC. And it's just apparently not true. What are they on a 3-game skid now?
I say apparently they're like the weakest link of the competitors in the AFC.
Yeah.
As they're showing us right now.
3 games in a row, and they've lost to Lamar Jackson and 2 backup quarterbacks in Jake Browning and Joe Flacco. So they've all been close games besides obviously this one, but it's just like when they played the 49ers, they lost 34-3. And it seems like when they play like a real contender, they just can't keep up.
No, yeah. And at least they have a very favorable schedule here to end the season. Like, it doesn't seem like you're going to drop out of the playoff hopes or anything.
Bucs, Panthers, Titans, they should realistically win all of those games.
Maybe the perfect chance. Back to the trend. Maybe the perfect chance to get
warm
hot.
up at the right time. The hot Jags.
Maybe the perfect opportunity to get microwaved up right before the playoffs. And that's the last thing I had to say about the Jags before I forget is this was one of those games too where I think you really saw Trayvon Walker, like this was what they drafted him for. Like these are the type of moments where when you need to contain a guy like Lamar and you need someone who can spy somebody literally from the fucking nose position, basically on the line in a little, you know what I'm saying? You can put him on the edge, you can put him anywhere, and he will be able to go out there and chase around anybody you need. It's a very unique skill set, but it's one that really no other edge rusher I would say has.
Right.
Trayvon Walker is a very unique player. This was the game that kind of really highlights what he can be used for at their peak. It's just, again, back to, can the Jags just be a little more consistent on offense so that we can give this defense the praise that it deserves?
Going to the other side, the Ravens are now the 1 seed in the AFC. Keaton Mitchell showed off elite speed. I don't know if you saw. He tore his ACL.
So I was just looking to make sure that when I saw it happen and I saw how bad it looked, I already had assumed that there was basically no way that something didn't tear completely because it was just one of those ones where you're like, yeah, that's just not supposed to look like that. But I also want to say prayers up to him. Seriously, genuinely, this was one where I'm telling you, I told my girlfriend what happened. I'm like, this all injuries hurt to watch, but this one really hurt to watch because like, young guy who looked so special. I mean, really, who's the last young running back I feel like that have you seen that? I mean,
was that explosive for that team?
He was explosive,
H-Han?
Like different that exactly. I was like to compare him exactly, and then same at least similar problem where the guys that are so explosive sometimes have trouble staying out there. And yeah, so I think Keaton and H-Han are like the perfect example of where you can compare them together, where it's like these two guys have a different gear. And when you see a guy like that go out for the season and potentially hinder that same explosiveness that we saw that he has, it really did hurt. Like that was one of them injuries where that hurt to watch.
Well, the nice thing with the Ravens is they won that game, and I don't think they necessarily operated very well in the pass game, and they were still able to win. And I think that it attributes to their elite defense, Lamar Jackson being a vet, and my thing is like toe for toe, like toe to toe. Looking at the AFC, I don't know if I see anybody that I trust to beat them consistently. Like, I could see the Dolphins beating them. I could see the Bills beating them, but I don't necessarily know if I see the Chiefs, Jags, Browns, like Bengals, Colts, like any of them really having a shot.
No, yeah, again, that's why, at least as of right now, you asking me as of right now, for the Ravens or the Bills, it feels like, could it be the year we see them in that bowl?
I will say a Ravens 49ers Super Bowl would be very fun to watch.
That would be insane.
I would like to see Lamar host the Lombardi.
Wasn't that the conspiracy theory before the year?
What,
that
that
they
those would be the
combined
matchup?
the colors and that the colors combinations have been the last
Oh,
Super Bowl?
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Weird. There's no way that's how it works. It's just very weird that is potentially another year that could happen. I mean, like, genuinely, what are the chances of that? That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Weird stuff. It's just weird simulation shit right there.
It's still, I still don't like the 49ers. But anyway, that was You Don't Know Ball 64. So thank you guys for watching. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everything, everywhere. Weekly content, daily content on our YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. We appreciate you guys. Thank you, Dobbs.
Yeah, and we appreciate y'all coming through. And yeah, just same as Hunter said, drop a like, drop a sub if you enjoyed, and we hope to see you guys again. Y'all have a great rest of your day.